For a few years in the late 1980s and through the late 1990s, Sega stood tall as the third heavy hitter of the video game industry, competing against Nintendo and later Sony for dominance. At the peak of this race was the Sega Genesis competing with the Super Nintendo across the world. While history would have Nintendo prevail in the end, the Sega Genesis birthed many beloved franchises, brought arcade-quality ports into people's homes, and made sports titles the juggernaut they are today. The legacy of these console wars lives on, and the games Sega released during this period have become the stuff of legend. This list breaks down the best games on the Sega Genesis. The 90s were the peak of companies experimenting with new and trendy mascot characters, and Sega's attempt with ToeJam and Earl lasted longer than most. Two alien rap artists that crashed onto Earth, ToeJam and Earl have to navigate an unfamiliar world to solve puzzles and wander unfamiliar territory. The gameplay features an early example of randomly set item spawns, a concept that would feature prominently in future games, and shows that this game were on the right path from the get-go. Side-scrolling beat-em-ups were on the rage in the 1990s, and Streets of Rage 2 was Sega's home console hit for the genre. With 4 characters to play as, players have a wider array of attacks than the original, as alleyways, streets, skyscrapers and construction sites are filled with enemies that need a beatdown. Streets of Rage 2 has everything a good beat-em-up could ask for: beautiful graphics, tight and responsive controls, satisfying gameplay, and a head-banging soundtrack. The series continues going strong to this day, showing the success of this entry's impact on the genre. Nintendo had a firm grip on the Castlevania franchise for the longest time, thanks to their close business ties with Konami. Castlevania Bloodlines would evade this grip, alongside several other non-Nintendo entries, and found itself in competition with the earlier released Dracula X and Super Castlevania IV on the Super Nintendo. Bloodlines is a world-spanning epic, with 2 different playable characters to choose from, both with different weapon sets to utilize. With the same high-quality soundtrack, beautiful Gothic setting and late Victorian-era themes common for the franchise, Bloodlines is a beautiful and enthralling adventure. Konami's Sega-specific answer to Contra 3: The Alien Wars on Super Nintendo, Hardcore brings home the arcade-level difficulty and quality the Contra series was known for. Loud, fast-paced, and non-stop in its difficulty, Hardcore doesn't know the definition of hand-holding and will suplex unprepared players right back to the beginning of the game faster than Sega's Blue Blur. Contra was always known for the difficulty of its gameplay, and Hardcore delivers in droves on Sega's 16-bit console, looking and sounding incredible the entire time. For hardcore players looking for difficult yet rewarding experiences, Hardcore is the place to be. Martial arts and ninjas were on the rage in the 1980s and 90s, and the Shinobi series took great advantage of this popularity with outstanding results. A series of difficult, beautiful side-scrolling action games, Shinobi 3: Return of the Ninja Master is the culmination of the prior 2 games' improvements and design philosophy to create a breathtaking experience. Faced with an evil crime syndicate's resurgence, Joe Musashi once again takes up arms to end their evil once and for all. battling from the forests and creeks to industrial centers and ancient castles. Beautiful, soothing and addictive, Shinobi 3 is a highlight of Japanese culture being used to craft a new and inspiring experience in the world of interactive entertainment. RPGs were beginning to hit their stride with the 16-bit era consoles, and the Phantasy Star series was Sega's go-to for the genre on their consoles. As the ecosystem of the planet Motivia continues to crumble and falter and plants and animals become far more aggressive, players will find themselves immersed in a tale about humanity riding the brink of collapse. Crazed monsters, desperate settlements, and a fight for the future lies ahead with NPC interaction, non-direct quests, and inventory management aplenty in ways not seen on older hardware in years past. Arcade and home console space during the late 1980s and early 90s, with the first game on the NES going down in history as one of gaming's hardest titles, while the arcade cabinet inspired home console variants and a series of cross-system ports. It's a shock the Turtles didn't catch on more than they did with Sega, given their rebellious comic book nature that complements Sega's anti-establishment marketing image at the time. A Genesis-exclusive variant of the arcade cabinet, the Hyperstone Heist is a single or two-player arcade beat-em-up with fast action, a beautiful comic book art style, and an energetic soundtrack. Regardless if a player is a fan of the heroes in a half-shell or not, people owe it to themselves to play this masterpiece if they enjoy an arcade romp of epic proportion. Side-scrolling run-gun shooters were some of the most accessible and enthralling games on the market, and Sega wanted their slice of that cake. Gunstar Heroes is a colorful and flashy shooter that offers single-player or two-player co-op gameplay. Gunstar Heroes puts the Genesis graphics through their paces, with detailed, cartoon-quality effects, designs, and sounds that could have easily worked as a televised series. Gunstar's controls are responsive and fast, and its gameplay is incredibly addicting to play and watch, worthy of someone's time in nearly every way. Arcade vertical shooters maintained a solid foothold in the games industry, even years after their initial introduction to arcades. With more powerful tech came more enemies on screen, better effects and sounds, high-quality soundtracks, and more fluid gameplay. Truxton is the embodiment of these enhancements, and is one of the most refined vertical shooters of all time. With monstrous robots and semi-organic machines 5 times the player's size, Truxton is a tall order that demands fast thinking and even faster trigger fingers. Truxton is everything a vertical shooter should strive to be. It's beautiful, addictive to play, memorable, and well-produced overall. If someone can only pick one shooter from the Genesis impressive library, it should be Truxton. DLC is thought of as a product of the early 2000s rise of digital content releases, but Sonic the Hedgehog was innovating on this topic before the common usage of compact discs. Sonic Knuckles is more than a mainstream Sonic title that introduced Knuckles the Echidna to the wider world. It also acted as direct DLC to Sonic 2 and 3 by plugging into the top-mounted cartridge port. This added level content along with Knuckles himself as a playable character. Take the already outstanding Sonic the Hedgehog 2 and 3 and give them even more content to play around with. For the time period it released in, Sonic and Knuckles was the best video game content offer on the market.